I still do that today just to kind of continue to refine my purpose and what I'm here to do. What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for stopping by. Early on in my 20s, maybe my mid teens to early 20s, I really feel like I could have made up a lot more ground. But, fear and a bunch of other circumstances, has a lot to do with making us not pursue things that we otherwise might if we never had those blocks in our, the mental constructs that really, you know, try to keep us safe, but really, they're barriers that we got to try to break through. And one of the ways we break through those is by, you know, not really buying into the fear and allowing it to scare us from doing things that we know are going to benefit us, but again, are very uncomfortable. But, from my mid-teens to about my early 20s, I feel like I dabbled in a lot of things, but I never committed, like 100% into one thing. And so I tried a lot of things, and on one hand, I learned a lot of what I didn't want to do. And the nice thing was, if I'm going to pluck some good things out of that, is my experience in my 20s was, bouncing from job to job, figuring out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And every job that I did have, I tried to look at the positives of it. And, I would write down on a sheet of paper, with all of those experiences. And, I still do that today just to kind of continue to refine my purpose and what I'm here to do. But early on in my 20s, it was, I'm at this specific job. What do I like about it? What do I not like about it? Try to figure out long term, okay, helping people. Great. That's a broad spectrum of a category of what you could do in your life. If you say helping people, well, you can help people in so many different ways. You could do coaching, you could do in the medical industry, you could stay in retail, which I spent a lot of time in customer service and retail, which was, a blessing in disguise for me because it gave me a lot of skills to deal with, difficult customers, being able to approach people. And that's just, again, one avenue of helping people. So, when you're going throughout your mid-teens and your early 20s and you feel like you're stuck in a meaningless job, I wouldn't really say that's meaningless. The great thing about my experiences in my early teens into my early to mid 20s was all those experiences really I developed, after plucking all the good things, I continued to, elaborate and discover what I loved about those things and continue to build on those things. And again, finding out what I didn't like, what I knew I didn't want to do, and, avoiding those things because, excuse me, they're not, things that are going to make you, extraordinarily happy. So I tried to focus on the things that brought me happiness, but also which, on the topic of helping people, that's kind of where I knew I was really good at, and innately good. It's like something that just came naturally to me. Um, I went to college in 2008, 2009. Didn't really know, obviously, where or what direction I wanted to go in, but I had a general idea. Again, the example that I use based on my experiences always, if you're new to this channel, is I wanted to help people. When I was in high school, one of the things that really took me out of a dark place, mentally, physically, and spiritually, was exercise and fitness and nutrition. And I didn't really realize that I could, build a career around those things. It was just something that I really loved to do. I was buying up all the muscle and fitness magazines. I probably spent $20 a month just on buying fitness magazines. But, you know, those things come after the fact. Like, what's your purpose in life? Early in my 20s, obviously I didn't know, and you may be in a similar situation. So again, it's just it's following the breadcrumbs down a path that, again, can take us in many different directions. But 2008, 2009 wasn't a great student to begin with. Growing up, I never had really good studying habits, never really was taught how to study. Education in my family was virtually non-existent. My mother and my father both did not graduate high school, let alone middle school. So I wasn't equipped to be a great student. And of course, I always use that as a crutch. So that's just another thing that really, I use as an excuse to say, okay, well, I can't do this because of this. And it's all, again, a mental construct I had in my mind that wasn't going, that basically was a barrier that didn't allow me to pursue things that I should have or really wanted to. I felt like a failure all the time, and I just didn't have the confidence built up. And unfortunately, you have to go through life and certain experiences to kind of understand those mental constructs and what they mean to you, because everyone has their own issues regardless of how successful you are or how your upbringing was. Each person faces their own obstacles in life, and no matter what in life, those obstacles will always be there. So on one hand, I felt a lot of regret early on in my 20s because I knew that I wasn't prepared for what I was about to face. Mostly emotionally, I always was able to overcome because we had such a rough life growing up. I had the emotional intelligence, I had the patience. I just use it as a crutch, like, oh, I'm going to wait for my opportunity rather than saying no, I'm going to go get that opportunity. And that's what everyone, if this resonates with you, that's what we have to focus on. That's what I focus on every day now, is let me go attack the day, let me go attack my week, and let me build and just keep stacking up wins that are ultimately going to get me to my end goal or goals or dreams, whatever it is for you. So again, learning how to use those experiences early on in your life to build towards that end goal for yourself is going to be the most important thing. And what I realized, which I learned the hard way, was that all of these experiences, whether they're bad or good or in between, are going to help build you into the person that you're trying to become. And you're going to go through these events, and I went through many of like the lowest of lows that I could ever experience in my life. And every time I thought I was at my lowest, I would go a couple months, maybe a year, even a couple years, and I would hit another new low. So the most important thing you can take away from this video is, if you're like I was early in your mid-teens, maybe in your mid-20s, heck, even into your 30s, it's like the dynamic of society has changed and things aren't as easy as it used to be, but they're also easier than they ever have been, if that makes sense. There's so many opportunities out there, and if you've grown up saying, okay, I'm going to college no matter what, I think that's great. You follow whatever path is going to lead you to that person, because like I'm trying to illustrate, you may find yourself going down that path and you're going to go to college, and maybe it absolutely works out for you. Maybe you go to college and you find out, this isn't what I want at all. So you shift gears. It's a mental shift, but you have to recognize when you're in those moments. And what's really difficult, and another experience that I had in my life, is after my first stint in 2008, 2009 in college, dropped out, obviously wasn't equipped to handle the workload, didn't have any study habits, all that. I went back home, worked for years, became a personal trainer, realized that, I love helping people. I obviously had a passion for health and fitness. So I really spent a lot of time building myself up, in the workforce, making money, all that fun stuff. And then, I'm not a big fan of quitting. I was a quitter early on in my teens into my early 20s, which is why I never really got anywhere. I was kind of like, I knew that, I kind of had an idea of where my path was going to go, but I kept going, like in and around directions that really didn't serve me any purpose. I was basically floating in, space for, many years, trying to figure out where I was going, and, all with the illusion in mind that, I'm doing enough that my time will come eventually. But again, as I illustrated before, you've got to go after what you want. You're not just going to wait around and be patient for something. So I spent, maybe 3-4 years as a personal trainer. And then I realized I want to go back and prove to myself that I am capable of learning and doing all these things, because I'm a very, headstrong individual, very stubborn, and I don't like failure. I embrace failure, but also I won't accept failure, and I won't accept not giving my best. And that's some of the things I've learned, in my early teens to my early 20s was, that side of me was still very competitive and didn't want to accept anything less than my best. So 2014, 2015, I decided to go back to college, and it was really a night and day difference. Obviously, I was much more mature. I got out of high school, 18 years old, very little life experience, had no, any sort of formal training or, upbringing about, what those next steps were going to look like, because my father did the exact same thing. He, just entered the workforce, even, without even graduating or, basically leaving middle school. So it's just one of those things that every person faces their own obstacles in life. And so, again, I just knew that I needed to go and and give it 110% and see what happened. So I went back and I crushed it. I mean, ended up with like a 3.7 something GPA. It was a phenomenal experience. Again, the ultimate realization was college just really wasn't for me. And I had developed a lot of skills over the years in terms of management and, another avenue that I decided to go down, which really ultimately propelled me into, um, you know, the person that I am today and the career path that I'm on now was joining the military. I joined the military in 2017. So a year after, basically leaving school again, I left my second stint in college. I left in 2016. Again, that's where I hit another low. Just realized, this thing didn't really work out for me. I have a lot of skills. What can I do to build on those skills in a very rapid, pace? Basically, it's almost like a course that's going to teach you very quickly of some very skills about discipline, resiliency, stuff like that. And my brothers were in the military. Thought about joining early on, never did. Obviously, the fear of commitment, was something I always battled with. So I said, the heck with it. 2017, January, went to basic training for 10 weeks. And ever since then, I've been on the path based on the skills that I already had, but that were built up in the military, being able to see the bigger picture. And again, it's all perspective that you learn by going through life, doing life, making mistakes. All that stuff really adds up. So if you're in your 20s or you're in your mid-teens, you're going through high school, maybe you're entering high school, maybe you're coming out of high school, don't panic. Really start to do things that are going to, one, push you down the path that you're ultimately trying to go down. If you have an inclination of what you want to do or you don't, you just keep finding something, keep trying new things. Don't close yourself off. Don't do what I did. Don't stay at home and hope that the right situation will come without putting in the work, because that's really what I was doing, and it was detrimental not just to my personal success, but my mental and physical health. I battled situational depression for many years, going through those different varying life events, and they were all self-induced. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. It's so easy to say these situations, these circumstances that I find myself in are because of so on and so forth. I never had the money to pay for college, but I went anyways, regardless, to get that experience and just find out, like, is this going to be something that I can see myself doing for 4 years? And am I willing to sacrifice the money to get that piece of paper that will ultimately send me to the job that I'm trying to get? Or I thought to myself, can I not get all this debt piled onto me that I know I'm going to have to repay? Can I go and find another avenue that will eventually end up putting me into that situation? The military was that for me, but again, you live your own life experiences, and there's going to be influences in your life that will say, oh, don't do this, don't do this, I want you to do this. At the end of the day, you need to listen to your heart and let your positive mindset and your heart dictate your reality. So don't let anyone try to persuade you into doing something that you don't want to do. I'm all for having positive role models in your life and saying, hey, what about this? What about this? Try them. But if it's something that's not working for you, it doesn't bring you happiness, don't get stuck on it. Because I felt like going through my 20s, I was on like a specific course or a path in life that, was like a recommendation, or I saw like this flashy headline, which you see all across the internet today. It's like, do this and you'll become a millionaire overnight. It's kind of like a Ponzi scheme mentality. Like, oh, if I do this because it takes the least amount of work, I'll get this much money. Or, another thing would be like, oh, I can do this job that's super easy and make this much money. So it's kind of a trap that I fell in, and I don't want to see you guys fall into that same trap. So live your life, go out and experience new things, and don't get caught up in like the YOLO mentality. You should really be charging forward every day, trying to figure out what the heck you're going to do with your life that's going to be meaningful to you and bring you happiness at the end of the day. And the whole goal is to get to that point towards the end of your life and say, okay, I've had my success, now I can live off my success. And it's sort of backwards thinking. Everyone thinks that they're going to party young and enjoy life while they're young, and then they're going to just die miserable in their job, working for the rest of their lives. So think about all those things, apply them to their lives, and if you're going through your teens and 20s, don't make the same mistakes I did. So if you enjoyed the content in this video, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you want to see any more videos in the future, and we'll see you in the next one. Have a good one.